scheduled for an hour to go through specifications. I'm just not that cruel. I'm not going to do that to you. But I think I can get through this probably in 30 minutes or so, and then leave it open for some questions. Uh, I'm glad it's sitting after lunch because I mean, specifications it's not really exciting, especially the part I'm about to cover. But I'll tap dance something, keep you awake, and we'll get through this. Again, becoming familiar with ODOT specifications. Um, if you look at our spec book, and this is our book. I think this is the first or second page. We just I can't say recently anymore. It's pretty old now, but we're in the 2009 spec. The previous one was the 1999 specification, which was the blue book. We're now in the 2009 spec. We made some changes going from the 99 spec to the 2009 spec that I want to address here, and some of this language talks about that. So bear with me and get through this. The purpose of these specifications is to establish, where applicable, minimum acceptable standards or range for acceptable results. It is the intent of these specifications that the contractor be fully and exclusively responsible for producing an acceptable end product. In producing this end product, the contractor shall exercise control of the project. What we're getting at here is that the book itself is written to the contractor. When we say contractor, it also includes the subcontractor. But as you read some of the language, we don't. If you read the 99 book, we said a lot of the contractor shall and contractor shall not, and we did away with a lot of that language, and now it specifically directs the contractor to do a thing, but without saying contractor shall. And so the intent of the book again is written to the contractor. Where the responsibilities or roles are to someone else, we specifically say the engineer or the supplier. To be more specific, and I'll get some more into that as we go through this. But I just wanted to just upfront that's one of the changes we made from the old book to the 2009 specifications, which we're now currently in. And if I can hold off, George wants to write another one here pretty soon. So if I can hold him off, we'll still be in the '09 specs. I think we can go through that. Yeah, I think I just covered that. Okay. Yeah, that middle part just talks about sometimes we do specify someone else. So in material specifications, for example, the subject may also be the supplier, fabricator, manufacturer of that material. The bottom part, you see a long list of words where it says wherever directed, required, prescribed, or other similar words. Uh, it's the intent is that we're saying that is responsibility of the engineer or the resident engineer. Anymore, we do specify when the engineer is, what is his role, what is his responsibility. So we'll say to the approval of the engineer, to the satisfaction of the engineer, at the engineer's discretion. We're pretty specific when it comes to the resident's responsibilities as it applies to the specifications. All right, got through that. The format of our specifications. Uh, we have a dual specification. If you flip through the book, we do carry all of our dimensions, quantities, things like that in English, but there's also a metric counterpart to that. So it's in English and in metric. You can get it in a bound book, and we pray that it stays bound. We small story behind the book. We did a lot of work trying to get this thing put together. We sent it off to the printer, and the printer let us down. We got a bad binding job on it, and unfortunately, that the publisher went out of business right after that, so we couldn't go back and get books reprinted. So if you have purchased the book and it's falling apart, if you'll bring it back to the department, we'll exchange it at no cost, and you get another book that'll fall apart. But and, so
What's the cost of the book?
the books are $55. Okay.
For certified DVDs, we'll get one for you if you want.
Do yours fall apart?
Huh?
The ones you get, same one? Okay, so we're just
We don't have special ones.
no, we were just pretty sore about that. All the work we put on this book and then to get them, and they look nice and they fell apart. We're pretty sore about that, and we have no recourse. But another reason to go redo the book. Yes, sir. Can you get a new one? You can have this one. I'll go get the new one. Also available in a CD format. If you go to our print services division and request it, they'll give it to you free of charge. If you've purchased the book, let me say that the CD will come with it if you request it.
You guys added DVDs. I would be your point of contact to receive that, so you can contact any of us. We can provide that to you instead of you having to make that trip in or requesting it through print services. Since we are in the support services, we're
free books, free CDs. And as you saw, it's also available on the ODOT website. So you have plenty of access to our specifications. All right. Some of the changes we made going forward from the 99 to the 09 book. We wrote it in active voice and imperative mood. Let me just go ahead and get that up there. So we use these two, going back to English, when you use these two forms together, it's just the clearest way to give instructions. The FHWA also is starting to write their specifications the same way. We just kind of followed suit. But active voice, it makes clear within the sentence who does what. So in an example, the department reserves the right to make changes, whereas what we might have said in the past, the right to make changes is reserved, and then left it up to ambiguous to who reserved the right. And so an active voice specifically says who's responsible. And the imperative mood is used to give a command, direction, or instruction to the contractor. So today we would say order the concrete, where in the past we would have said the concrete shall be ordered. And so when you use these two forms together, responsibilities, roles are more clearly defined. There's less ambiguity in our specifications. So the book is intended to be written that way. There are some places where you'll still find, the contractor shall, but we tried to do away with a lot of that language in the new book. And this is how it's broken down. The first chapter 100, and George gave you a lot of specifications out of that section. This is our general provisions, general information, definitions and terms, bidding requirements, how the bids are awarded and executed of the contracts, legal responsibilities, how we measure and pay for work. All that's all contained in section 100. After that, we get into more specifics about the actual work and how we pay for it. So chapter 200 will be the soils, erosion control, sediment control. The stormwater management is also found in that section. We talked about that in section 220. Chapter 300, bases. 400 are services, is concrete and asphalt. 500 would be our structures, bridges, culverts, retaining walls, things of that nature. 600 would be our miscellaneous construction items, sidewalks, manholes, different buildings and structures, things like that, fences and guardrail. 700 would be our materials. We get more specific about the material properties of the work. Each of those sections before will have let me back up. Each section is broken down into 6 different subsections. It's 0.01. Say there's let's say 800.01 would be the description of the work. 800.02 would be the material section of that work. And it's just a general description of the material properties of the work. Most oftentimes that subsection will refer you back to the 700 section to get more details about the materials in the work. Then there would be 0.03, which would describe the equipment necessary to do the work. 0.04 gives you the construction methods on how the work is to be performed. 0.05 would be the method of measurement, how we measure the work. And then 0.06 is how we pay for it, basis of payment. In chapter 800, all our traffic control facilities. All right. Special provisions. In all our special provisions, you'll see this basic statement. Special provisions revise, amend, and where in conflict, supersede applicable sections of the 2009 standard specifications for highway construction, English, and metric. That statement is at the top of all of our special revisions. General use special revisions. Any of our special revisions, which we call general use, have been approved by the Federal Highway Administration. Every provision that we develop, we submit to them for their approval, so they know exactly how we're amending the 2009, how we're amending the book with our special revisions. Every provision is referenced to the book. So if you get a special revision 414-5, then that 414 references you back to the 414 section within the book. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Is not a special provision specific for projects?
Yes, there are some, and I'm going to get to those. We do have some project-specific special revisions. When you're looking through the plans, sometimes you'll see some pay items that have an SP in parentheses. That stands for special provision. That lets you know that there is a provision in the contract, in the proposal, for that work. And so you'll know that there's something outside of the specifications, the spec book, that you need to look for that defines that work. And again, I showed you they're available on the website. So all of our general use special revisions you will find on the website. We also have some job-specific special revisions that we use. Typically, you won't find them on the website because they change so much. There's no way to put those provisions out there because they're so specific to that job. But you can always call me, email me. I can send you an example of something that we're using job specific. If you see something in a proposal that's job specific and you would like to have a copy of it, I can get that to you. But each of those, the job specific special provisions, they'll have that same statement at the top, but below it will be, above that it will give you the project number, the state job number, which is the JP number, and then the county where it's listed. So that's one way to easily identify the job specific special provisions that we use in our contracts and proposals. All right, let's talk about some of these job specific special provisions. A lot of them that we use frequently, and you should have some handouts in front of you. I gave you some examples of what we use in a lot of our projects, and let's talk about some of these briefly. So, they may not apply to you directly as a subcontractor, but you need to know how it's affecting the prime contractor on that job. And a lot of these, some we use frequently in our proposals and contracts. The first one there is a lane rental. A lane rental. Does everybody have these? Are these in here?
It looks like they're in the.
Okay, they're in the books. Great. The first one, the lane rental. If you look at the top, it's titled 108-96. That 108, that ties it back to the subsection within the spec book. So that's the section within the book that we're amending or revising for this provision or for this job. It's job specific. So again, you see the project number, the JP number, and the county listed there in that general statement. And for our lane rental special provision, when you see one of these, there's two places you kind of jump right to. It's going to be pretty standard language, except for the first part under general, and that's where we give you a basic description of why we put this lane rental in the project. So for the one in your books, it tells you this provision establishes lane rental fees for lane restrictions, work associated with milling, inlay, installation of traffic signal loops for the lanes, turn bay closure at the traffic signal or adjacent to the intersection of US 69 at Fern Mountain Road, also known as Harris Road, will be subject to lane rental fees. So it gives you a brief narrative of why we're using this particular provision in the project. And if you flip to the next page, typically you'll see a table that outlines the times that we're going to associate or assess a lane rental fee on that project. So for this one, table 108-1, it tells you Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m., we're going to assess $1,000 per lane per hour lane rental fee on this project. And then right below that, from 7:01 p.m. to 5:59 a.m., there's no lane rental assessment. So what are we saying? This pop quiz. What are we saying with this lane rental, with this table? Yeah, we're looking for nighttime work. Okay, with this provision. Not saying that you can't work during the day. It's just going to cost you a little more. All right. Then that second table, table 108-2, Saturday, Sunday. So this is obviously a weekend table, and we give you some time frames there. Again, nighttime work over the weekends. But basically, those are two basic things that we jump right to when we look at a lane rental provision. That first part, which gives you the narrative about what this is for, and then the table that tells you when when we're going to assess a lane rental fee for that work. So, any questions about the lane rental? All right. Next one should be what we call a flexible notice to proceed. In layman's term, we call this a flex start special provision. And a flex start provision, when we execute the contract and it goes through, you're going to get a notice to proceed, but usually we'll give you a 3-month window typically from when you actually have to start the work. And so you may get your notice to proceed, say next Monday. But as a contractor, he has from that time to the date that we specify in that special revision to actually begin the work. And so it's flexible for him. And typically we give him a 3-month window. The next one says delayed notice to proceed, or what we call a delayed work order. And so unlike the flex start, where he has a window to get started, this one we're going to tell him you can't get started until this date. So that's the difference between the two provisions. Next one, prosecution in progress. These provisions give the contractor some information about the project that may interfere with his work schedule. Typically, if there's a utility on the way out there, we may not restrict the contractor from going to work, but we want to give them a heads up that we expect this utility to be removed by this date. We want you to work from this station to this station during this time frame. Some specifics about the project, but to alert the contractor that there's some restrictions on this job that you want to be aware of that may affect your CPM and your scheduling. Next one, incentive disincentives. And that's short for incentive disincentive for early and late completions. As a department, of course, we're eager to get our projects done early, and we pay incentives for that. This provision outlines provisions for how we will give that bonus to that contractor for early completion. And if he doesn't meet that time frame, the assessment for being late, for not meeting that milestone. And with an incentive disincentive, such provision is typically centered around what we call substantial completion. And substantial completion basically means getting that road back open to traffic. So the sooner we can get the road open, the better, and we'll give him, an incentive, and it'll be defined. In this one, if you go down to that third paragraph, it tells them that the rate we're going to pay $4,000 a day for every day less than 150 days. We gave him 150 days to do the work, or 150 days to substantially complete the work. So, and then we cap him off at 25 days. So the max incentive he would earn on this project, if he finished it 25 days ahead of time of the 150, he'd get $100,000 bonus on this project. He misses that date, then that $4,000 becomes an assessment that we assess to the contractor until he gets the road back open or substantially completes the work. That's how these work. The next one should be internal milestone. It works a lot like the incentive disincentive, but in this case, instead of it being substantial completion, we've identified something within the project that we want to tie this incentive to. It could be, just the completion of one of the bridges in the project, or getting a ramp open, or something within the project that's integral to maybe somebody else's work, or it's important to something else within the project or another project coming. And so we'll tie an incentive to just that portion of the work and not necessarily getting the project completed. Just a major milestone. I guess I'd be, where are we? There we go. The A plus B. The A plus B special provision, it's kind of a combination of the two, a combination of the incentive, disincentive, and the internal milestone. With an A plus B provision, everybody's looking at this? Great. That first line where it says contract time allotted for this project is 240 calendar days. That is the overall time associated with this project. From beginning to end, contractor has 240 days to complete this work. And then in that second line, you see the DBE goal associated with this project. The line below that, the maximum time allowed B bid for substantial completion is 210 calendar days. And so you see we've knocked off 30 days that we expect the contractor to get the road back open to traffic. And we're going to give him an incentive of $2,000 a day and pay that incentive up to a maximum of 50 days. All right. If he misses the 210, let me back up. That B time, as the department, we associated a time of 210 days to this B time. That's what it's worth to us. The B bid, we allow the contractor to bid that time. And so he can bid the full 210, but he can't bid more than that. He can't bid 215. But to be real competitive, he may bid 200 days. He's like, instead of 210, I'll do it in 200. All right. And so his B time becomes the 200, whatever he bids. If he bids 180, it becomes 180. That's the time he has to beat to start earning incentives, not the 210. So if I bid to 180, now it becomes my target. And so to get the full incentive of the 50 days, I have to do it in 130 days to get the full incentive on the contract. Yes.
Okay.
I expected questions here. This A plus B gets complicated.
You got 240 calendar days to complete the work.
The whole job. Yes,
Whole
ma'am.
job, that's final completion.
Yes.
Okay. 210 for substantial completion.
Yes.
Okay. Your substantial completion, you call it B? I mean,
The
you
B bid.
You're just basically giving it a term. It's not that your substantial completion is the incentive date. Your substantial completion is the substantial completion for the project period,
Which is associated with the 210.
which is associated with 210.
Yes.
Now you
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am. And we allow the contractor to define what that B is. That
Okay.
becomes part of his bid.
all right.
Okay,
How does that work into the whole low bid thing?
good question. So the overall project, based on the 240 days, that we call our aggregate bid. That's standard. You got your line items, you put in your unit cost, multiply that out, and you get the sum total. That's your A bid. We factor in the B bid by taking the number of days that you bid, say the 200, and multiplying that by the incentive rate, that 2,000, and we add that to that A portion of the project. So that's why you have an A plus a B, and the lower sum of those two numbers was what we call the low bid.
So in other words, if my B bid is lower than my A bid, you would call my B bid the low bid?
No, no, no. We're going to take your A bid, which is the whole project,
Okay.
and then we're going to take the number of days you bid on the project, multiply that by the incentive rate, and add that to what you bid for the A bid. And so it becomes, say you put $1 million on the A, and your B times the rate was 20,000. So now your bid becomes 1,020,000.
Okay, all right, okay.
That becomes your overall bid.
Okay, and that's the low bid.
And
Get those numbers.
And that's what we
That's
compare.
what
That's
we
how we compare.
Okay.
Right. And so the lower, if I bid lower days, then obviously, it's going to make me more competitive
Right.
to somebody who bids the full amount of time. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That went pretty well.
Wait a minute.
Uh-oh. Spoke too soon, man. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let's say contractor A bid let's say 195 days.
Okay.
Contractor B bid 200 days.
Uh-huh.
Now, contractor A, his number might come in higher than contractor B because his incentive is more. Because you're paying him more because he's finishing earlier.
No, we can't factor in the potential bonus. We don't factor that in. So you're going to bid out the line items. Your A bid.
Okay.
There'll be some difference there. All right. But then you're going to actually bid the time. You said 195 days, and multiply that by. In this case, it was 2,000.
Okay.
So what's that? 39,000. No, 390,000. 390,000. So we're going to add that to what you put in for your A bid.
Right.
Now, the other contractor, depending on what he bid for his A, adding that to, you said 200. So the 200 times that 2,000 is 400,000 plus his A bid. And so that's what we have to really compare to determine what that low bid is. And so you may come in higher on your A, but if you bid the time down, it may.
Well, I was just going to ask, like, as a service provider, when I get ready to contract with a prime contractor, there's all these forms I have to submit, like B forms and all this stuff. It would be helpful to have some training on, like, I filled some out, but I have no idea if I did them right. You know what I'm talking about?
You're talking about on a professional services contract?
No, not like the utility service contractor. Like, when I contract with an engineering firm, a prime engineering firm doing design, and they list me as a DBE to get approval to use me on their contract, then there's forms I have to that they ask me to submit. They're called like B forms, and I have to put like what rate I bill and just different stuff like that. So
For that,
That's to determine the overhead. So that was how the form was saying, that's
are those contracts specific? Are those for the prime contractor, or are those for ODOT?
it's something they submit to ODOT. Oh, something I submitted to them. I thought they submitted to ODOT, but maybe it was.
It's from us, it's a form that we submit to the prime contractor, the prime contractor presents to auto.
Okay.
So they determine the overhead just for the audits.
Okay. Did that answer your question?
She's asking for guidance. So is there somewhere?
What I'm trying to figure out is if we're talking about a construction process or a consultant contract process. Okay, so for consultant contracts, those are managed and administered by the project management. Well, I guess they're under purchasing now, whoever they are, contract administration personnel. So I would think if there are forms that they're requiring from the prime consultant, then they would be probably better versed at being able to answer how those forms need to be completed. So I would, yeah, or Cecilia Kathy Hurst or Cecilia Payne. Yeah, since it's originating from them, they're asking for those documents. Yeah, because speaking personally, I don't know.
as far as supportive services, but that would actually come from their office. And I can get you their contact information so that you can, okay.
But it sounds like Liz is having a problem with that. Others might have a problem. What she was saying is maybe it'd be useful to have some training.
Yes,
so
on
that
how to fill those
information
forms
gets to
out.
everybody.
Yes. And that's what I was just speaking with him about. I'm in the process right now actively putting together something for consultants on getting you guys information in the process. So I was just talking with another DB about doing that to make sure that you guys had guidance and information on your process, because so far, well, now that you guys have been actively participating up till now, we haven't had much participation, and you guys have been in the forefront of everything that I've been doing so far since I assumed the position as far as participation. So I need to make sure that I provide you the services, and get you the information that you need, and I'm actively doing it right now, and we're looking for sometime around the beginning of January to provide you that information.
Thank you.
Not a problem. Next question.
Did she hear that person should give us a fast forward into,
No.
okay.
No. No. There is no mechanism in place for that. There used to be a memorandum of understanding in place years ago where there was not necessarily reciprocity, but there was a mechanism where if you were 8A certified that we would accept your paperwork. However, SBA would not accept ours, so this memorandum of understanding only worked one way. The bottom line is there are two different agencies, two different sets of regulations that we're going by. We have to make an independent determination regardless of whether you have how many other types of certifications you have. And certainly SBA 8A is rigorous, and they'll ask you for stuff that even we won't ask you for. But we'll ask for stuff that maybe they won't. So there's some differences in there in terms of what we're looking at and what we make our determination on. So if you're an 8A company, you certainly want to make sure and let us know that and give us your 8A, maybe a copy of your 8A certification, but that's not going to preclude you from having to go through the application process. I certainly would, but it doesn't matter whether or not I agree with you because I'm operating under a US DOT regulation that requires I do certain things and requires that I require that paperwork in the application and documents. So I don't have any wiggle room, no matter how much I may agree with you that, yeah, that's certainly an additional burden, but that's not something that I have the capability of making an exception on. Well, this is something that was done at the federal level, and it was agreements between SBA and DOT. So you're talking about someone who's way far above my pay grade, certainly. But it's something that, and I really don't I really don't know why the MOU was put in place in the first place. But I just know that my experience with that MOU was that SBA did not want to play. Oh yeah, well definitely if you do, because like I said, I totally agree with you that anytime we can relieve the burdens on small businesses as far as paperwork goes, I would love to be able to have that power to do that. But yeah, unfortunately I don't. I promise I'm not picking on any one of you in particular. I pick on you all equally. it's basically an application which is several pages that has to be signed and notarized, personal net worth statement, a list of documents that must be submitted. So basically, it depending on your particular business. I mean, I've gotten them this thick, and I've gotten them, this thick. So as far as the amount of things submitted could really vary from business to business. But as far as the actual process itself, the application comes in, Charity logs it in, it gets passed on to me, I review it for completeness, I notify the applicant if there's anything missing, and then we go from there. If it's an in-state company, I do an on-site review, then write a report and submit it for making a determination. If it's an out-of-state company, I will contact that home state for a copy of the on-site review that they performed, and then rely on that to then write the report. And then from there, it's just a matter of, like I said, writing a report and then submitting it to, in this case, currently Jenny Chong is our acting assistant division manager, so she would be the person that determines whether or not that firm meets the qualifications. Time frame could really vary very, very greatly.
Let's say you had the perfect applicant who everything was in place, the review went fine. What is about the shortest amount of time it could take?
I have done it in as little as literally one day. That was just a simple little trucker, and he came and showed up with his truck and his application, and I talked to him, and he was done. That's pretty rare exception. I would say probably on average it's going to take at least probably 30 days, depending on the level of my workload at the time and where you are in the queue and that kind of thing. I've had them take up to 18 months, and that was because it took 16 months for me to get the paperwork. Yeah, so I mean, there's a cycle of notifications and letters, and if I ask you for 10 things and you send me 5, and then I have to send you 3 more letters to ask for those 5, and etc. That can really drag it out.
Thank you very much.
So.
I just want to say this has been great. It really has been extremely helpful in getting to understand, an aspect of how you guys work. We appreciate it. It would be, having said that, some of the other departments also sort of understanding how they work. And I've been fortunate enough to go to workshops on with the environmental division because of a solicitation, just getting introduced to them a couple of years ago, and being shortlisted for a contract, but then after a debrief, understanding why we didn't get it, and then being plugged in because of their attention to getting potential contractors or potential consultants on their mailing list, as well as those who are already in the loop. So that's been very helpful too. I had the opportunity to talk to project management and start kind of understanding maybe how they did things. And one of the things that I noticed after this last solicitation that could be of help, and I guess I'm just saying this so that if you're taking stuff back and taking, ideas, I think that this would be helpful. When a solicitation comes out, when I had first talked to project management, they had indicated, several different ways how you can begin to interact with prime consultant firms. And one of those ways was when that solicitation comes out, the contractors or the prime consultants who have submitted a proposal, you now have that list, and you're able to then begin to market to them. The unfortunate thing is that at that stage, there's no contact information. Apparently there is, but we don't have access to that. So when I called project management, I think I probably talked to you, Katrina, or someone who told me you need to contact project management, and I did. And I found out that there is a screen that they can look at, because the comment to me was, well, the best thing to use is the email address of the person who submitted the proposal. But we don't see that. And so as a result, every contractor or every consultant, or many of the consultants that had submitted on the contract that I was looking to potentially sub under, most of them were out of state. And most of them had multiple offices out of state. And so now I'm trying to figure out which office, and you know, and I understand as a business person, you know, there's some work that's obviously incumbent upon me as a business, you know, in terms of business development. But I just think that would be very, I don't know if there's a reason why we can't see that contact information. There may be a very good reason as to why we don't have that information at that point. But if it is possible for us to have that information at that point, it's
That's definitely something that that information right there is the prime, or excuse me, that question right there, leading in, you know, everything that encompasses that is the prime reason that the next event that I'm hosting, to bring those key people, okay? Because on our end of it, it makes it makes it hard for us to comment on the process for the way they do business. So me bringing those people and us being in the same room together and them being able to chime in on their process, their specific process, because obviously it's the process that's holding you up. It's not, you know, that the information isn't out there, but it's how the information is put out there and made available to you. So bringing those people together, you know, putting us all face to face is the first step, or actually it's the second step. You made the first step. You acknowledged that there was a need for something there. So now it puts the burden on me to be able to put you in the right position and in front of those people to make that decision, you know, so that we can streamline the process a little better. So that's what our the next event that I'm hosting, that is going to be specifically for you. I'm going to bring the people from project management. I'm going to bring some prime consultants in to be able to answer questions, so you can do some networking with them and figure out their process and how they want things. So that is what is in the pipeline. It is coming soon, very soon. You had a question.
No, earlier I was going to go ahead and comment on the DBE certification process. I work with Katrina. She expedited mine, I don't know, in less than 30 days. Maybe I was nagging her, but
That's how you get things done.
Maybe that's how you get things done. But like I said, less than 30 days, read, you know, the instruction in very detail, provided what they requested. And I think at one time she said, you are missing XYZ. Provided that, and it was a done deal. So anyhow, my point to that is just make sure you read, you know, what they are requesting, and continuously communicate with your contact person, which in my case was Katrina.
So in your experience with the process going through certification, would you say that the system that we have in place, it works as long as you follow the guidelines?
It worked for me. We are certified through DBE. We are certified through the Oklahoma Minority Development Council. We are also certified through the Bridge, which is, you know, a program down there in Tulsa. All these programs work together. So it won't hurt to go ahead and, you know, contact the OMSDC, a member down there. And actually, I contacted somebody that was certified DBE. And I wasn't, but I was certified through the Oklahoma Minority Supplier Development Council. So are they. So I said, hey, would you mind, you know, giving me, you know, a talk here and there, how you were able to go ahead and fill your process and what you did to expedite it and what I need to look for. And they gave me those points. I was able to do that and communicate with Katrina and go from there.
Next question. Okay. No one have any other questions?